We got to approve minutes next. Is there any suggested changes to the minutes from June 24? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Terry, is there a second? Sally, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, the minutes are approved. Next, we'll turn it over to Shara, first for the mission moment and then for the executive director's report.
Absolutely. So for the mission moment, we're going to share a short video that was made. We offered a scholarship from one of our family child care programs who submitted a proposal that was accepted to present at the NAFCC conference in Dallas. So here is her video that she made while she was there. So you will also see from the slide, we were very pleased because Tracy Polonis is one of our first providers that joined the Preschool Promise Network. She is also the president of our local AFSCME that organizes the community providers. You can also see her 90% approval ratings as the people that participated in it. And it was very important to us because it was really talking about the business basics. She did anything from marketing to selling yourself to elevator speech. And it was an opportunity to highlight how our community providers, particularly FCC, are not only experienced educators, but savvy entrepreneurs and businesswomen. And so we were pleased that they were highlighted in that conference, as well as encouraging their peers to do the same. So that is our mission moment. She was also in the first cohort that the Black Giving Circle funded that gave everybody access to QuickBooks, live plans, and all of those initiatives. So it's paying off. Yeah. All right, I'm going to roll right into the PD report. So as you all know, it's the happiest time of the year for me. It's the return to preschool and getting ready for Preschool Promise Month. Here is our snapshot of our enrollment update of the number of approved, denied, pending. Our grand total is 778. When we look at our stats, we are 25 children ahead of where we were at this time last year. I would like you all to give a round of applause to Flo and Amber, our outreach and enrollment team. This happened because there is no Saturday that we are not in the street in July and August and September to make this happen, including a very successful Back to Preschool Jam that we shared on Facebook for those of you that follow us. And we had, as of last night, 386 independent views of that event. And always thankful to our partners at the African American Chamber of Commerce, as well as Union Savings Bank and Guardian Savings Bank, who continue to sponsor that, Kona Ice, PB&J, jazz musicians, great event. That supports and kicks off for everybody. It's enrollment time, let's get ready and back to school. You will also see in there a summary of public policy, our update there. As we know, things are still moving at the state level with the Ohio General Assembly. We know that there have been some changes to step up to quality, ratios, and group sizes. We will continue to track those. The comment period for that rule was open for a short period of time. We are still assessing the impact of what it looks like to have the rules change for type A providers versus type B providers. We know and anticipate that it will be a decrease in licensure seat capacity in our system because now many type B providers are not motivated to put in the extra effort and work needed to move to a type A provider because their compensation base rate is so much lower. What we also decided to do this year is that we changed our base rate and our tuition assistance amount to match what should be enacted as of November 2nd. So that means that providers are receiving more dollars from publicly funded childcare, which means Preschool Promise is putting in fewer dollars, if you remember, because we also supplant other dollars. If those changes do not go into effect as planned and promised in November 2nd, I may come back to you to have you reauthorize and look at how we are doing our tuition assistance amount, because that would mean that providers will continue to be at a significant loss if the state isn't putting in those extra dollars, right? So we have asked providers to keep a track for us of what that monetary loss would be, so that we are, if we are able to at least consider how and if we need to manage that. We thought it was wise to go ahead and make that, because as you all know, unless there are extreme circumstances, we do not make a change to the tuition assistance amount during the tuition assistance year. It creates chaos in our system, right? So we gotta pick an amount and stick to it, okay?
Do we have an idea of how this is impacting family childcare providers, since they are changing the way they're paying, especially type A, and how this is going to affect them leading the market?
Yes. I mean, we've had some providers who have closed their type A sites, and we have done our best to resource and make sure that those children at that site either went to a center or another site, but we absolutely know it's going to have an impact. What that impact will be, we can't predict, but we are watching it closely in partnership with Cincy for Children, in partnership with the CEO project in ASPE, and our provider council to say, what is the impact of that? We know there's an immediate fiscal impact. A couple of ways that that could play out is, one, the burden goes on the parents, right? If you are not receiving sufficient money from publicly funded childcare and other sources, you have to pass those costs along to the parent. What we will see in that is not that parents will be able to pay that burden. What we may see is a drop in enrollment rates, right? But it will take some time. I wish I could predict to you. At this point, I'm still trying to understand what the rule means. I mean, we've been in national advisory and state advisory calls to try to navigate what the impact of that can be, how the part-time versus full-time hour changes are going to be. So know that we are monitoring it, but we have asked our provider network what we always ask. Tell us the direct impact of these changes. Sometimes I don't need to know why. I need to know what the impact is, so that if we're able to mitigate that, so that it doesn't prevent us from delivering on our mission, which is providing that high-quality preschool, we can address that. It will be more challenging for us to do that, given our current budget situation and the uncertainties right now. But that is just a heads up for you all to know. I may come back to you and say, we had a drastic shift, and this is what we need to do. So that leads me to our conversation about strategic direction. Our 3-year strategic plan was completed in 2025. I worked closely with the governance committee, and my request was that we not enter into a new strategic planning process until we were certain about the levy outcome and the forward-looking strategy with changes with procedures and policies both at the local level, state level, and national level. You will see these were always our key strategic questions to keep in mind around accessibility, affordability, and availability. Nothing changed. You have seen these for the last 3 years, just to be mindful of what those questions are that we will have to tackle as we move forward. So I just wanted to keep those as a reminder. What I'm asking very specifically today is that what we would like to show for you in terms of metrics in our dashboard that are aligned with our strategic plan and not new. So for this 1-year period, until that strategic plan is completed, these are the measures that we would like to show you in terms of performance and what we're doing in outcomes, and wanted to get some consensus and feedback from you all if there are other metrics that you would like to see over the course of the next fiscal year.
Sure. I guess my question about those is they're what we're counting. And this particular thing doesn't represent any targets. I understand in this extreme transition period that we might or might not want to set targets, but if we are, I mean, mean, we shouldn't just agree, okay, let's count these things.
No,
What
no.
are our targets?
Right, if these are the right ones, then we will generate the targets for you like we have done before on the dashboard. That also includes the target that we had last year, the target that the budget allows. So in many ways, this is driven by the budget. If you feel it's more to wait to see if these are with the targets before you make that decision, what I will tell you is these are 8 metrics. We had to boil these down because what I didn't want to do is generate targets for the 24 metrics that we had before without getting some consensus of this is what we're going to count, right? Because there are some things, like, we're not necessarily still counting how many people go to a PB&J thing for CPP Plus. We know that works. We know what the outcome is. So I apologize that this was to save me some work, to get some consensus on whether or not these were some of the things we wanted to count before we do the targets. What I can tell you is, we can add or remove these. I'm happy to send out projected targets of these for you all to consider and perhaps do consensus at the annual meeting if that would be better.
Okay, good.
What does provider network, what does that mean?
QI and TA. Provider network includes those in quality improvement and those in tuition assistance.
Does that mean number of providers?
Correct.
Okay.
That's percentage of providers in the network that means we know the number is going to change and fluctuate. We don't have control over open and close, but we want at least to have a threshold of 90% of our providers in the network remain active.
Okay.
So where would, like, student outcomes or family outcomes fall?
Good question. We have never measured or set in our goals and targets student outcomes with the exception of reporting on what our KRA outcomes are and our progress over assessments from TSA hold. So that is something I think we should consider in our strategic plan, but the feedback has been through previous conversations in the board. There's very little of that we control. So for us to take ownership to be able to deliver on what those specific outcomes are, or how we reach to where our dashboard is now, where they are metrics of output, not complete outcome and impact.
Anything else on this for Charlotte?
Okay, yes, I'm happy to complete. As I said, we will probably send you in board manager's update what this looks like, previous progress, suggested targets along with the budgets that you all can continue to review. Please feel free to send me any questions or concerns. We'll be happy to iron this out so that we're on track.
I'm sorry, I'm still processing. So to Glenn's point, we don't measure that, but when we get feedback from the evaluators, et cetera, they'll just tell us the data in terms of how the kids perform. Right?
We've never set a goal that
Right.
says the KRA score should be X.
Right, understand, yeah. We're just seeing what they are when they happen. And just make it, yeah.
We
Provide.
sort of established that these are proxies. These are things we know drive child outcomes. So we measure those and not the child outcomes because we don't have direct influence on those.
That's how we got to those dashboard measures, but some of them are also, were specifically enumerated in the agreements and in our vision, right? How we support teachers and what teacher rate is and what we do to invest in that are specifically promises that we made. So those are enumerated in some of those ways as well.
Yeah, I would just ask us as a board, though, and all of us to think about, if goal 2 is about high-quality drivers, outcomes would be the measure of effectiveness, right? If we're not getting outcomes from the different initiatives based on student outcomes, is that time to reevaluate. So while we don't have a direct impact on student outcomes, I really do think that will go to the output of that should be student outcomes.
Part of what I worry about is if we lose the student piece I'm sorry, part of what I worry about is if we lose the student piece in our messaging. Maybe our education process is to say this isn't an outcome because there are too many variables that impact it, but it is an output that we keep our eye on all the time so that we can evaluate what this does to that. And I worry about losing it completely from the kind of the messaging. In a sense, we're trying to train people that these are the important things to get student and family outcomes, but they are not sufficient to do that. And that starts talking about the changing needs through maximum financial flexibility or whatever.
Because I think one of the measures, I'm trying to think through an example of what we talked about. I mean, I think what we knew was, one of the drivers that we measured but didn't put as a target that we have is attendance, right? But through these efforts, our attendance rate has gone from 85% to 88% to what you'll see in the evaluation that's coming is 90%, right? But if we had to go back and if you asked me again, generally without an external evaluator, point to exactly which one of these drove that attendance, it would be hard for me to say which one of those did that. Right? That doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. That doesn't mean we shouldn't identify it. But I think at some point we will also have to commit to dive deeper because what you're asking me is what works. What works?
Yeah, that was a good sort of conversation or discussion for me because as I look at these, and I think if I'm totally off base, please tell me. But I keep asking the same questions about the KRA outcomes, which is what the evaluators do. Is that correct? So these metrics are sort of the drivers for what may appear on the KRA outcome report or evaluation. But there was one specific measure that I kept, and it has to do with student outcomes in terms of ethnic and racial composition and the number of kids coming in, you know, all that. So I won't go into all that level of detail, but help me understand. I think the conversation, I'm either confused or something about it.
So I want to be able to,
if I might, just so I'm thinking about it, I might be thinking about it wrong, okay? But what you offered as I was reading my material said, this is the strategic plan. Generally in the strategic plan, it's more broad scope, although you know, like these are specific metrics about for that plan and what's driving the process. But in order to sort of make, we need to know from an evaluative perspective how these metrics are being met. And that's where I see the evaluation report driving that process. Is that correct?
well, what I would say is the evaluation is only going to validate these numbers. That is not what they're going to look at, right? That is not, their focus is to validate to make sure that our data is clean. Our evaluation is a couple of things, right? If you remember, the evaluation is to do an overall recommendation on the effectiveness of us as an organization, right? One. So it is not like a traditional evaluation that says we're just going to look at the outcomes, right? It is a twofold evaluation that does that. The second thing is they are looking at traditional outcomes that we agreed on, which is the KRA, but the KRA scores that they look at are combined based on a funding source. So you are not going to be able to look at those KRA outcomes that we have and tie them out to what these drivers are.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll share too, just for some historical context, when we were discussing some of this and kind of getting to that discussion about KRA scores and tracking them and measuring ourselves on them or not, it was at a time when nationwide they were suffering tremendously, in part because of COVID and kids being at home and those types of things. And really factors not just out of our control, but also out of the control of the providers where the students were. So, I mean, it may be a good discussion to have again, as the world is a little different now than it was then, but that was one of the main parts of coming to that conclusion, was it was kind of down everywhere for things, not two steps removed for us. I mean, not just what we can control, but also where the students were actually learning every day. So,
And I would suggest that if there was a measure that we would look at that is more predictive and aligned with this, that we could track a little bit better, it would be preschool progress, right? If we look at the assessment that is done, particularly through TSA goal, which is aligned with developed with DAP and early learning standards, to say, what did our students look like at the beginning in these domains and what did they look like in the end? With that validated assessment, I would say that would be a better predictor for us than just the KRA scores. But we will never shy away from the KRA scores because that is a statewide accepted testing standard of what we measure. And I think as we go into the strategic planning process again, we may want to look at that. But I also want to be clear, this is in no way do I think this is the strategic plan. This is a strategic direction building off the end of the plan that we had to make sure that we are in fact measuring something in our final course of the year.
this is a good discussion. Anything else on this? It sounds like something we can continue to come back to.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, I appreciate Margaret's point around, and this is clear to me around the metrics that we track and we control, right? This is what we as an organization can hold ourselves accountable for. The messaging is different, but important, that we not lose sight of what this is all about, right? Kids ready for kindergarten. And I think about, like, even our mission, right? To ensure equitable access to high-quality preschool. That's this. Our goal is these measures capture that, so that every child, since that child is prepared for kindergarten, right? So, like that second part, right? Child outcomes, so what, right? So what does high-quality preschool do? Even though we can't draw a direct line, our theory of change is that if we do these things, we're contributing to the ultimate outcome. So at least, and now this is more just for messaging and how we communicate it, but not losing sight of the ultimate student outcome, so that what the whole point of this is all about, right? Is clear in our messaging is an important part of it. But I think about it like, there's a difference between outcomes that we control versus outcomes that we influence, right? These are the things that we can control, that we should hold ourselves accountable for achieving. KRA, preschool progress, right, are outcomes that we influence, that we are one contributor, but there are many other contributing factors, right, outside of our control. But it's important for us to track, monitor, and communicate about, because that's what we're ultimately striving towards. So maybe there's a way that as we get into the next strategic plan, thinking about those metrics by which we control, hold ourselves accountable for, versus those that we influence, that we are indirectly contributing to, that are important to keep the line of sight. All right.
I think that's very helpful, and I think you will find very succinct messaging in the evaluation that tells us what the benefit is of these metrics, who benefits from these metrics, and recommendations that may have an impact on making those benefits expand. Sally?
Just a random thought in relation to this. The idea that high-quality preschool leads to school readiness, third grade reading, success in life is well documented over decades and decades. And our earlier data has shown that we contribute to that. So I would never say we shouldn't keep testing the theory, but we don't have to prove it over and over again. We have to prove that we have strategies that fulfill that high-quality preschool delivery.
I think to your point, innovations, we're so lucky to have them, have been very succinct at the things that they think are the differentiators, if you remember, one of which we do have an impact on and one of which we don't. And one is very clearly attendance, and what that attendance rate is. The second is family mobility. Family mobility, right?
Yeah. Char, was that helpful to you and what you're seeking here?
Okay, I think we need to also remember that CPP supports teachers as well. You know, and we can't have high-quality preschool without high-quality teachers.
Stability.
And stability in that. So onboarding and retention is very important. Yeah, because we want the teachers, we want the children to have continuity of care. So we need the teachers to stay in place over a period of time so that the community and the families have faith in what we're doing in our centers. So supporting these teachers is very important, and it impacts what the children are learning and how they can be successful throughout their years.
I think support has evolved and looked very different. I think when we started, the notion of support was just that material and supplies, and we've grown to say that support is also being in community and professional learning communities. It is also professional development. It is also coming together for other ways to make sure we are supporting that workforce and offering them opportunities for advancement. And the best roadmap that I can tell you all for how to do that recruitment and retention is the rule that was planned, that was passed for Head Start, that has to be implemented by 2030. It is evidence-based, it is proof working, it is $84 million that nobody has, but I think following those best practices and guidelines is what we try very closely to align ourselves with, because that whole rulemaking process of what's in there is the best thing I've seen on recruitment and retention. So yes, this gives me what I need. We will continue to update you all in the Board of Managers updates. Please send me any suggestions or recommendations you have. There's nothing that we're not willing to try, implement, provide data on, but we do want to get so that we're showing you kind of the same thing so that you can make sure that we are delivering on progress. The next item is the Speakers Bureau. I know that you all have been anxiously waiting, and again, I will say not yet. Caitlin Miller will be leading that for us. Unfortunately, her family had a car accident with her children this afternoon, so she could not join us. Everything is okay as far as I know. We're checking on her, but the training handbook is here. You will see the contents of it. We are excited to have her. As soon as we were ready, we were offering you multiple dates for that. We were hoping to have a meet and greet with her, but it's solid. I would love to have some of the other talking points that I mentioned to you all that will be coming related to some things that are happening in November. So as we nail those down, this will be rolling out. I feel confident that you all are ready to be ambassadors. But these are the fine points, because I don't want you to get stuck on nuances, questions, in the weeds. We just want you to feel ready. Right? So this is coming, and I wanted to show you a flash shot of what this is, and we got excellent feedback from the Communications Committee on the details of this, things that we need to add. I promise you, you will be prepared, and if not, send me a test. We will get you prepared in the middle of your speech. You'll be good. You will be absolutely good. We also want to do some celebrations of staff. We had one of the Inquirer Women of the Year with us, Ms. Florence Crum. So very excited. We are also celebrating Tanya for her acceptance into the Rotary Club after months of being we will have some other celebrations that have been embargoed, not yet released, for each members of our staff. You will see those pop up during Preschool Promise Month, and really celebrating milestones, because we do have some staff members that are rolling into their 8th and 9th years with the Cincinnati Preschool Promise. So we'll be celebrating those as well. Okay, I think
And I see that you were nominated for the C-Suite Awards for the business career, Charles.
Congrats.
thank you. I told it,
You're gonna win.
as I told the team, we were all going to eat very expensive chicken and celebrate. Very excited. So it is an honor.
I'm sorry, and also the NAACP. Go ahead, Sharon.
Yes, NAACP Education Award is in as well. So it it is all possible because I have an amazing team and a board that lets me and inspires me to lead, so thank you all for that.
We love to see the good work that all of you are doing to recognize that. So congrats to everyone there. If it's okay with everyone, I'm going to switch number 4 to number 5 on the agenda. I found out earlier that a change in my childcare situation for tonight where I need to leave at 5. And when I asked Marcia if she would take the gavel at 5, I promised her we'd have all the approvals finished by then. So I want to see if we can jump to number 5 and then we'll come back to item 4. So we're going to jump to contract renewal. I think we have 3 contracts to approve this evening. Yeah. 2 of them are quality improvement, and then the 3rd is the peanut butter and jam. It's always kind of easiest when we do this to go one at a time. They were sent out in the pre-reads, and they're also in these packets here. Shar, you want to present and start with the 4C one?
Absolutely. This is aligned with the master services agreement that allows us to do a renewal. It increases, it is actually the same hourly rate. It is an increase in the annual cap to $245,000 as you all approved in your budget. You will see the provider served most recently and the recommendation from our staff team that we renew this contract. No drastic changes, no major differences. As you know, there was a provision in each of the master services agreements that allowed either a rate increase or an hourly increase. We allowed each of our coaching vendors to elect how they wanted to do that, and 4C elected to keep at the current rate and to maintain the cap.
Any questions on the 4C for Children contract? Any discussion? Is there a motion to approve? Carolyn, is there a second?
Second.
We'll go with Tony there. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The contract is approved. Next is Learning Growth.
Yeah, you will see a similar master services agreement and update to the scope of work. What is updated to the Learning Growth agreement is the increase from fiscal year 25 to the hourly rate that was anticipated and planned for in the budget. The annual cap on this contract will be $128,952. What we have done is discontinued the mentor program that was at a rate, I think, between 40 and 50K a year. Because that just wasn't in our budget anymore to do that. We have worked proactively with Learning Grove to identify other philanthropic and funding sources that may be able to cover that as well, because we definitely benefited from the learnings from that mentor program. But this is for ongoing coaching and continuation of the work that has been done with 5 specific sites. And so staff is again recommending renewal of this master services agreement for an additional year.
Are there any questions on that one?
I would ask to be recused from the vote, please.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
So on the duration of service, Shar, should that be July 2025? Or it says 2022?
Yeah, the duration of service.
Learning
Summary.
in the summary.
This is only gonna be for a 1-year agreement, so the duration of service, we're not asking for a 2-year term, we're asking for an annual review. So we will update those votes, because it should be for the July 1, 2025 to the June 30th is when the service is gonna be. So the 2-year term began in 22, and it allows us for 2 years of additional renew. So that means 22, 23, 23, 24. So we can renew it without RFP again for the 24-25 year and the 25-26 year. Does that make sense? So let me go back. The duration of service for the original agreement was 2 years in 2022 with the option for 2 years of renewal, so that is accurate.
That statement was correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
What we're requesting today for approval is for 1 year of the statement of work for this fiscal year from July 1, 25 to June 30th, 2026. So that means that in 2026, based on the master services agreement, this has to either go out for RFP again, or we have to redo the master services agreement if there's a sole source provider.
Okay, thank you.
So am I reading this right? 4C serves 53 providers, and Learning Grove serves 5?
That is correct. It has always been in that way because of a couple of things. One, Learning Grove's expertise in who they chose to work with at the time. They work with parochial providers as well as FCC. It is a distribution of work where each got allowed to select who they would like to work with. If you also remember, that cohort has shrunk. And you will see in our evaluation that we are serving fewer providers in QI. Because if you have been in our QI network for 3 years and have not made progress, we have asked you if you would like to exit the program. At the same time, because there is a limitation in the cap on the contracts that's lower, because last year, remember, we implemented for the first time, we wouldn't have unlimited contract amounts. We have not added additional providers to that cohort. The reason that there is such a larger cohort with 4C is that 4C, we're very fortunate as the CCR&R does an augmented staffing model so that they match the coaching that is paid for with public funding, philanthropy, and other sources with the coaching that Preschool Promise funds so that we can maximize that dollar to get providers what they need.
And so the Learning Grove isn't providing more intensive work, or is providing more intensive work on 5 versus 4C over 53?
It depends on what the coaching plan is. I wouldn't say that as a blanket answer because each provider has, each preschool site has an individual coaching plan based on what they need. So in many cases, yes, I think if you would ask our coaching teams, ask Brittany, ask Andrew, ask Deanna, like the answer would be yes. It depends. The intensiveness depends on where the provider is because you know some providers come to us with no rating. Some providers come to us at what used to be a 2-star rating that are trying to get to a 5. So I don't want to make a blanket statement, Tony, because it does vary based on that. And I think sometimes we have providers that have more challenges that we've assigned based on the ability of each one of our coaching teams to augment what they need. So if we knew we were also going to have the venture program run at the same time, perhaps the provider with the most challenges would have been with Learning Grove that provided that, right?
And do we reach the cap, the annual cap on both of these?
We do our best. We do our best. I mean, we try to reach the cap and we've done a reasonable projection on what we think each provider is going to need based on the plans that have been created. We just brought in 6 new providers in the QI cohort for this year, but usually the variance has come when we have providers who say, don't want to, right? We've had enough, we have to prioritize something else. Rarely have we had a case when we've had a request for coaching that is in alignment with what our QI team and the coaches believe is going to help someone reach high quality that we've been able to say no to. So I'm very careful in how I say that. There may be requests that have been made for coaching and support that is not going to drive an increase in your step up to quality rating where we've had to say that's not something that we can support, right? So sometimes there's a mismatch that way, and I think you'll see that most frequently so that you don't hear it on the street, but heard it from me. The popular myth that you can jump into the QI cohort, not follow your plan, not meet with a coach, they get thousands and thousands of dollars of materials and supplies, and not move on your plan is no longer a situation that we advance. So if you hear a disgruntled person because they didn't get the teeny tiny cubby, it's true. They did not get the teeny tiny cubby.
And my brain's just trying to math a little bit here, and I don't, I'm sure you know the answer to this. So looking at, roughly 75 an hour, so each of these 5 providers, roughly, and I know it's not all direct service, right, but would equal out to about 400 hours of service per 5 providers. I mean, again, it's not all face-to-face, but would the providers say, or would we say that the outcomes are worth that? That's just a lot of support.
I would allow Brittany to comment on that. Would you like to comment on that, Brittany?
I do want to comment. I kind of want to provide some clarity around the original question in terms of do we always reach the cap? Yes, we try our best. And I will say that 4C, who has the larger number of programs, typically come very close to that top number. With Learning Grove, with the number of 5 currently programs they're supporting, they're not gonna come to that cap with the 5. But our goal, our target goal, and I don't know if we're gonna get to that this meeting, but our target goal for new QI programs this year is 15, and we're dedicating the majority of those spots for FCC, and most likely will be assigned to Learning Grove. So this coming year, they may get close to that cap.
Thanks for that. Any other questions or discussion for the Learning Grove contract?
Micah, it won't make any difference on the vote, but I just want for the record that I have to recuse myself from the 4C vote.
Okay. We'll go back and do that, yeah.
Early childhood.
And we will note that Margaret's recusing herself for this one. And we'll make sure those are both reflected in the minutes. Any other questions or discussion here? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Pamela, is there a second? And by Ross, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Contract is approved. Last one for approval.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you on the board of Learning Grove, or did you do it because of?
No, until the last day of this month, I have helped them with.
Okay, not because of the, I mean, I'm just wondering.
Oh, no,
Okay,
you're
okay.
you're a volunteer for them.
You know?
No. They give me money, you have to.
Okay.
All right, the recusal parties. Peanut butter and jam musical education. Shar, can you present on that one?
Absolutely. So as you know, this is our popular musical journeys program where we go directly into classrooms. We do have outcomes for this that we have seen. Significant social emotional learning and advancements in this. We're asking for a renewal of the contract for 10 classrooms. The budget did go down a little bit because we don't have to buy new instruments every year. There's a carryover for instruments in what we do. I should also clarify that there are 2 different contracts enclosed in here for that total amount. One is for the back to school jam that already happened. The other is for the ongoing musical journey sessions each week that happen in those particular classrooms. The interesting thing that happened this year that we've never done before that I knew of is that we actually had makeup sessions. Right, so if the students missed and they weren't in attendance at class that day, PB&J made time to go back to their classroom out of the regular cycle and make sure they did that musical education for the students. So that was fantastic. What we've also been able to do is that PB&J has been able to leverage our support to also get support from children's hospitals and other grant funders to expand it to other providers. Because we made that initial investment, we've also doubled up so that now every time there's a peanut butter jam concert in our community, whether it's preschool promise funded or not, that our parents and families have access to those concerts for family engagement, for student learning, and that is particularly important for school-age students. And our theme this year is jazz bands. Last year was opera, jazz bands.
Any questions or discussion on this one? Anyone need to recuse themselves?
I have a question, I guess.
Go ahead. Yeah.
On page, I guess it's page 4, so you just were reflecting what the cost would be if we added a classroom? Was that the intent?
Yes, we do know what that is, because what we ask them for is an additional, if we have additional providers that request a classroom to do it, they can't add one classroom, because they can't add a staff person to additionally do that, so we ask for the incremental cost of what it would be for us to add an additional classroom, and they try to make that manageable. But we also put in here a miscellaneous expense, so you'll see for that $1,000, so that if we do need to do some reimbursements and small additional materials, because I think some of the instruments are string instruments, not just rhythm instruments this year, that may cost a little bit more. But also to clarify, if we're going to approve these collectively, the motion needs to be to approve both of them or do them singularly, because they're 2 separate scope forms.
So that would need to be included in the motion to approve both.
start, maybe I'm wrong, you consider this one of our greatest, I mean, this was a special ad a couple years ago. We did a search and we picked a program we thought was really good.
Yeah.
And is this a winner?
I love the way Tony always sets me up. I would say absolutely yes, because I think we all knew the power of mutual education to do those things that we know are aligned with developing appropriate practice for the social emotional learning, for the math and the literacy. And if you will recall, this program and how we reported on the outcomes won an award when Children's Hospital did the poster presentation at their national conference. I would say this is our #1 big thing that we know are the extra or the enrichment programs that we know drive better outcomes for children that our providers and families would not be able to afford or access but for this preschool promise. The second thing I would say is if we ever get super rich again, the other thing that does that is American Legacy Theater, right? That is play-based in what they do, and I think the other piece of this that you all don't see is the parent engagement that happens at a concert. We have standing room only in a church to come see 24 kids pay the triangle. And so it is an opportunity where we have had families say, I want enrolled in the preschool that has PB&J, right? So if we ever have the opportunity to upscale and pick what we're gonna do, I would love to say that we have this in 30 classrooms. And this is one of the projects that was selected through Pitch Right.
Is there a motion to approve these two together? That's what we're looking for. Moved. Sally, seconded by Tony. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It's approved. We'll jump back to item 4 on the agenda, and we'll turn that over to Kenitra, and I'm going to turn the chair over to Marcia and head on out, but I'll see you all soon.
So good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I'll say, you guys already stole all of my thunder. With your eagerness to we start talking about numbers and all of the results regarding KRA, that is a part of our evaluation. So you guys already talked about everything I was going to say. So first and foremost, I'll say that a reminder of our upcoming board briefing that will take place on September 8th. It will be virtual at 12:15. This will be a chance for you guys to think your questions. We will send out after you guys to do a review. So it'll be a chance for you to bring your questions. For the presentation that will be presented by the evaluation team from Innovation. So you'll have Dr. Mark Mitchell, Dr. Aubrey Cox, and Peter giving a briefing to you guys. So have a chance to review, have a chance to provide your questions, so you'll gain some insight from them before we bring it to the public. So we're wrapping up all of our edits. We'll have that for you. You'll have a chance to review the executive summary that will be distributed to you. We take the questions that you got, the questions that you bring to that briefing and your recommendations, and we really use that to gain additional insight that you guys are talking about that leads to the strategic plan. So really take some time, really think about it, so we can gain that additional insight that we need. Also, the insight that we gain from the briefing, from the board review, and just overall from the annual meeting will lead to what we use to draft and put into the scope of work that we will then produce for the Q4. That's exactly that Q4 in 2025. As we look at what went well, what additional data that we need to collect that will help us in terms of data collection or what we want to do going forward for CPP, that's how we draft what we're going to look at from the evaluation standpoint. We'll know what we're going to keep, what we're going to modify, or what we need to actually take out. I think that's what we had before. Is that helpful to you?
Any questions for Kenitra on our year-end evaluation that's coming up? I find this briefing is pretty helpful for me because it takes me a minute to chew down on some of that stuff. So I want to encourage you
to come to the briefing if you can on September the 8th, because that way you have first look at it, you can ask questions, and you know, they label with some of us, it take a little longer to process. So I want to encourage folks to come. Any final questions, Doug, about this? About the process? About our big meeting on, what is that? That's the week after our annual meeting. So you probably got the invite from Tanya already. That was that invite that said be here on that day. Yeah, I was like, what? What's that? Yeah, that's an important meeting. So, okay. All right. So thank you so much for your presentation and for your hard work. And we're on our agenda again, and we're at committee reports. And I think I'm first. So from governance, we are, it seems like we've been preparing for this annual meeting for the last 4 months. So we've had a lot going on. We took care of some of our business in June with the governing principles. So for our annual meeting, what I have to share with you today, first of all, when you come on that day, be prepared to do your annual disclosure form, your conflict of interest form. Maybe we'll get some kind of treat or something for those who get it done. I don't know. Got something?
We absolutely will.
So we want to get that done. How about 100% at the annual meeting? Can we do that? That means everybody got to show up. But yes, yeah, we'll get it done at that meeting.
August 23rd, September 23rd, September 23rd.
Yes.
Yes, September 23rd.
Okay. So that's September 23rd. The other thing I'll share too, in this season, we sent letters out to the 3 entities, the 3 nominating entities for our next class of 2028. And we did receive back nominations from United Way, and we received last night from the board meeting the nomination from CPS, and we anticipated receiving nomination from Promise Ford within the next 2 days. And so once we get that, the process is we receive those nominations, and then they go back to governance, and then we review them to make sure they fit what we were asking for, and then we present them to you for a vote at the annual meeting. So in your annual meeting packet, you will receive information from all of the nominees, so you can see that up front. If you have any questions or comments or things we need to know, you can share them even prior to the meeting, but we will be voting on those nominations at the annual meeting, okay? And then finally, the other piece of business we have is the nomination for our officers. So the 3 officers are our board chair, vice chair / secretary, and the treasurer, and we all got a nice little behind the thing twist to step up and do it one more time, one more year. So so we'll be bringing that slate to you as well at the annual meeting. However, if anyone is interested in serving in any of those capacities, please let us know. Let me know directly. We will bring that to the governance committee at our meeting prior to the annual meeting, and then proceed from there. So, any questions on governance? Oh, we did good. Okay. All right. Communication. Ms. Terry.
Okay, most of what I have to say, I think Shara has already mentioned about our Speakers Bureau. And with Kayla, we were hoping to have some type of more concrete information about how we're going to be doing this. So we're going to have a long version and a short version. We're going to have virtual, in person, just making sure that our branding is on point. And we're all saying the same thing about the levy and about the CPP board. So we want to make sure that we have a message that is going out to usher in support for the ballot that's coming up in November. We also talked about the web design and how the website is going and is changing and is still in flux right now. So we're going to be looking at that as well. And once it is, we ask that you all look at it and make your suggestions, have your input in, because we do want that. Also, as far as our mascot, did we ever decide on a mascot?
Teddy the turtle, steady and ready. We are very hopeful that we will have a rendition of Teddy ready for the annual meeting. Fingers crossed.
Yes, and be looking forward for your t-shirt. We expect, oh yeah, he comes with a t-shirt that you must wear to all board meetings. No, I'm sorry.
Margaret has on her spirit wear.
She does.
We love
Hey,
you,
Betty.
brand.
One day I did wear my CPP t-shirt to work, thinking it was the 4C t-shirt. They asked me, like, why do you have that on? I'm like, it was dark when I got dressed. Okay, I think that's really about it. You know, we're still waiting for Ms. Miller to get in contact with us and give us some more concrete information about the Speakers Bureau, but we ask that you all participate one way or another. Thank you.
I will be quick to say Kayla has also been doing outstanding with our social media audit. Thank you all who continue to post and share. You'll see all the details in there. She did a very thorough job. Our focus over the end of the year is really going to be on getting our LinkedIn and, much to my dismay, TikTok. So we're all stepping in. If you all saw, as I said, I made a reel on Saturday. So we're all joining the social media bandwagon. I will call your attention to also a discussion that Ms. Terry led at, that we look at our gender and our age range of our most popular. And what it tells me is that most of our traffic is probably not coming from our preschool parents. It's probably coming from our board members and stakeholders. So thank you. Thank you for that because of the age groups. And so that's something we are going to focus on moving forward. And so you will see some actionable steps from the social media audit, but we did want to assure you that there's a plan.
What's up with the meeting?
Okay. Just follow it.
I don't know what to tell you. So we will, we have partnered with 2 new fiber-fed data initiatives that count as well, because we noticed that, and then we got a plan to see how we can address that.
That's because their wives didn't tell them.
Yeah. So you'll see that going forward, and we'll continue to do that. And then, great feedback. Thank you from the Communications Committee on Fiscal Promise Month. You will not see that full calendar until after Labor Day, because dropping it now gets lost, right, in our events. And I bolded the things that you'll see. You'll also get individual Google Meeting invites. And if you can respond to that, because we want to make sure when you show up, you have Fiscal Promise pen, you have a name tag, and we have stats. But there are a couple of new things that we're going to be doing. We are continuing to support and share with our families with United Way's in-person children's savings account enrollment. We also are going to do a co-host of a webinar that the Children's Funding Project is doing on how to secure statewide and dedicated funding for early initiatives. What we thought is it would be fun to ask everybody to come here and watch it together. So we'll have light bites and treats in the afternoon if you'd like to join us in person for that webinar, because it may engage some discussions and inspire some ideas of the Children's Funding Project. And we will also be having an open house the day after our annual meeting, so that we'll have hard copies of our annual report. It'll also be a press junket that we have lined up for that day, and we'll be running media in and out of here that day. So it'll be a good opportunity for talking points. All staff will be here. Providers and families are welcome to come. Those who come have special presents with Preschool Promise things on them if you show up for open house. But we'll be here. It'll be solid time for the day, our day after the annual meeting, because we want to invite everybody to celebrate the accomplishments that we've made with that impact report that we release at
All right, any questions for Terry or Shara on communication? All
Cost of quality, Sally.
Yeah, so, I remember some of the things that we did at the meeting, and I'm gonna need help on some others. We looked at our purpose statement again, and we're continuing to tweak that since we changed how we operate. There currently is another committee made up largely of providers and community members that's also working on cost of quality issues, and they recommend up to the board committee that's working on these issues. So we're trying to get that right. We had a great presentation by Brittany and Lindsay on the training that CPP is offering either in partnership or individually that fills gaps that are not otherwise being met, and it was very helpful to sort of understand in a little more detail about what we're offering in the way of improving quality for providers, so thank you for that. We received a number, and Brittany talked about this, very interesting. The first time I really started hearing the word deregulation when it comes to early childhood education in Ohio and around the country. And much of the changes that have been made, having family child care, I mean, the whole step up and numbers and what's going on really amounts to deregulation at a time that, as we were talking about before, the high quality leads to good outcomes. Eating away at the potential quality risks the whole, all of what we're doing. And so how do we continue to afford quality, expect quality, given that the state of Ohio is continuing to weaken what it means to be able to serve children in this state. So more on that to be continued, but I found that really helpful for the discussion in that group. What did I forget? Brittany, Shara, Kenitra, what else did we cover in that meeting that the board might want to know about?
I would say that one other thing is that we did have a homework assignment, and that was really looking at best practices and examples so that we continue to understand how and why people are driving those high attendance rates. What are the studies showing about attendance? Because while we know our rates are good, what are the family or community factors that we may be able to influence to encourage that? Because we've reached a pinnacle doesn't mean we're going to stay there. And so being mindful of what's driving that and how we can continue to do that with our homework assignment that we will bring back to the committee as we continue to talk about what we think drives better outcomes to make sure that we stay aligned.
So if 90% attendance is good, what do we get for 92 or 3%?
Or how do we invest to get there, right? Like what does that look like? So I will kind of say as a preview, one thing that we're going to use when I looked at where we still have some opportunities that maybe some fun things to do for this year. So we still have some dedicated private funds for a transportation pilot. So start thinking about how in January we may do a pitch night again. And that pitch night will be how do we invest those transportation funds to do.
The pitch night, is the pitch night the same time that it's been like January?
We can make any time that you think it should happen. We usually picked January, and the reason that we picked January is that it gives us a window to know kind of where we are budget-wise and what we're going to do. We're all full for this year. And it also gives us some time for implementation plan strategy so that if we approve it and we move forward, the implementation and the launch and the results of that are ready for the next fiscal year. It's hard to ask someone to select, submit the information, and implement in the same year. So that gives us some leeway to know who's going to be, how are we going to launch it, make sure that our evaluations are ready or whatever's going to happen
academic TA year, we're ready to launch, right? So we have a window, January, February, March, can't do pitch night later than March, right? Because we have to have people aligned to be ready to do it.
Do you see this staying in January since it works, like for 2027?
I can't predict anything that will happen past November.
That's true, that's true. I don't, yeah, I'll just turn off my mic.
All right. Sally, you said something, you used this word deregulation.
Yeah.
So is the thinking there as things are moving towards, okay, my filter's off, so I'm trying to be nice, but starving off education, just sucking the air out of, especially public education and funding? Are we thinking that it's going to cause us not to be able to expect quality, or I'm trying to understand, because my mind goes to, I already get in great distress about low expectations and mediocrity around our kids and education. And so, of course, the less money you have, the less you have to invest. And so the ones that suffer the most are the ones that need it the most. And so we start to build this infrastructure education that looks elitist almost. So is that, maybe I'm overthinking.
No, I don't think you're overthinking at all. I think that for our realm, community-based early childhood education, I think, which is tied inextricably with childcare for working parents. I think the idea takes us back to an era where we need less regulation because anybody can watch a kid. And so lowering the ratios, lowering the expectations around teacher training and education, may, in theory, you have a place for kids to be during the day while parents work, but it takes us away from the early, which means you can pay less.
Right, because, yeah.
So, you know, that speaks to paying less. In the K-12 realm, this is another thing that's not us directly, there's some irony in that we, like private sector early childhood education, the K-12 system, where there are all these private schools and charter schools that have fewer regulations than the public schools, will lead us to erosion of our free public education system for kids. I think I'm on a soapbox right now, but I think your fears are on point.
All right, you just went real deep. Made us laugh, so, yeah, more to come, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, anything else on cost of quality? If not, oh, yes.
To also add, when you were speaking about the deregulation, and Sally had mentioned that you'll have programs, you know, sort of stepping back on their quality, but they're also now given the option to even participate. So you'll have some programs that opt out of participating and step up.
Okay. You know, that was my concern when I'm talking about family childcare and all of the things that they are going through right now. And if they opt out of quality because they're not going to be paid that extra money that they've gone through, then what does quality really mean? Does the quality definition change in order to fit the dollar sign? Or does it remain the same and we have fewer people participate?
Good question.
I think that is an ongoing question, and you will see that embedded in some of our strategic questions. But I also, the feedback that we hear from our provider network and what we're very intentional, that I have to say that I was saying maybe very casually before, we don't have providers that are opting out, we have providers that are being fiscally forced out, and that's not the same.
True.
Yeah. And so I think as long as we can, CPP will continue to bridge that gap so that we are making an investment because we know quality costs and we know it's worth the cost, right? And so every provider that we have talked to, it was a difficult, heartbreaking decision that they had to opt out of step up to quality, not because they didn't think it was the best or they didn't think they should. They had to make a choice whether they educate our children or feed their families.
I've had providers contact me just last night, you know, that they are opting to not do the 5-day, but do either a third shift or weekends, and then get a job. Because they need the insurance, they need the money, they need to take care of their families. You know, so it was heart-wrenching for me to hear that, because that's where I started. And I would love to see them go on and be successful and see those babies as they grow up and they are successful as well. So, yeah. All right, on
And
that.
it's a happy meeting.
Well, we all, we got, no, well, this is why we exist. We exist to help raise that up and make it important and to talk about those hard things because it points out the work we have to do. And we can't be passive about it, and be creative and innovative around those solutions, so. Yeah, it was kind of deep, but we're gonna pass the Vera. Maybe Vera got some good news for us today. Go take it away, Vera.
Hello,
Yes.
good to see everyone. First, we want to say thank you to community, families, parents, everyone in the city of Cincinnati, because CPS has had a very nice opening. So we are all back full force. Preschool started yesterday. Our older children started last week, and I will say in 42 years, this has been the calmest I have been in an opening ever. So it's because everyone came together and everyone did a lot of transitions and a lot of work through the summer to make it right for our families and our kids, and that's what we're about. Just wanted to say right now, we're at about 1,400 students in our focus, which means they are in our classrooms, and it was great to walk in the classroom and see all their little bodies running all over the place and enjoying that delicious cafeteria food, which they do. It is pretty good food. We are still enrolling, so we are moving forward. It's been very active. A positive has been our centralized enrollment. So with it being centralized at the Ed Center, and then we also have a location at Leap and at Vine Street, it has made it more accessible for our families. And I'm not just talking preschool, I'm talking about our kindergarten through 12th grade children also. Because families can go to any of those 3 locations, the main one being the Ed Center. But we also have Leap and Vine for a family that might need a computer or internet to enroll their 5th grader. So we are really about accessibility to get our kids in classes and starting to learn real soon. I was excited to hear you all talk about student outcomes and strategies because this year we're going to focus on 3 in our department. We will be focusing on access and enrollment, getting our families in, supporting our families with our partnerships with Project Connect, Kisser, and other avenues to help support the whole family. Our second will be professional development based on our KRA R scores, where we saw gaps in hopes that we can fill those gaps through alignment, which takes us to our third one, which I think is one of the most important ones, is instruction. We have reorganized our department somewhat. Mr. Calhoun can verify that. That we will have people out and about that are giving long-time supports in our preschool classrooms on the instructional piece. We feel we have a good grasp on the SEL and on the physical, but we do need, looking at our data, KRAR, and with Innovations has shared with us, we do need to up our game, especially in the area of mathematics. We were stronger in STEM because we like STEM, I like STEM. But the language and literacy area and mathematics, we are really going to be focusing in on. And we're going to do that by, yes, monitoring the KRA scores, but we are also looking at our TIA scores because that is a commonality we have with CPP and CAA and other partnerships. So we will be looking at our winter 2024, and we will be comparing it with our winter 2025, which hasn't been administered yet, to see where we're at and where we need to adjust and where we need to move forward in hopes to keep serving our students the best we can. So our main focus will be instruction while staying in compliance, because I know that's what we have to do. And that's all.
Well, thank you. Any questions for Vera?
Is your 1,400 enrolled? Is that a big number?
At this time of year, seeing we opened yesterday preschool, yes, yes. We realigned a little bit. Going to centralized enrollment has given us more accessibility to families and being able to help a whole family that might have a preschooler, a 5th grader, and a 12th grader. Along with that, we had events throughout the summer where we made technology available to families at different locations, at our high schools and other locations, that they could come in and we could support no matter what grade their child was in. So yeah, we're on track. Our goal this year will be total, and I'm not just talking expansion dollars, you know, we have our other funding sources. Our goal this year will be around 2,000 again. We ended the year very close to that last year.
So on track for last year?
We're on track, yes, we're on track.
I was just wondering whether we were gonna talk about the levy. And, because I'm thinking that the board, there will be opportunities to participate. And I'm hoping that everyone on the board will pitch in one way or another. It may be writing postcards, it may be delivering signs, it may, I don't know what it'll be, but it may be talking to our providers. But I'm making a pitch to the board members to say, we hope that everyone will be a part of trying to ensure that the preschool promise part of the levy passes. I mean, the whole thing, but, you know, the preschool part is especially important to us.
Thank you, Sally. It is critical. We are not here without it. And after the meeting adjournment, if board members can hang around, I will have specific assignments to share for today.
Did I take your call?
You did. You did. Not at all.
Okay, any other questions for Vera and CPS? If not, thank you for your presentation. Any other, do we have no other observers here? Okay. All right, well, if that's the case, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment. So, Terry? Carolyn? Is that you? All in favor, say bye.